good to have you with us, and welcome to Arirang News live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Na Hyun-kyung. We begin in Korea's southern port city of Busan. We are into the second and final day of the Korean-ASEAN Commemorative Summit, and President Park Geun-hye held a joint press conference less than an hour ago. For more, let's go live to our Hwang Sung-hee in Busan. Sung-hee, fill us in, please.
President Park Geun-hye and current chair of ASEAN, Myanmar President Thein Sein, just gave a joint press conference. They provided a joint statement on the Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit outlining their vision for the strategic partnership between Korea and ASEAN. Now, these include forging stronger ties politically, economically, and culturally. To name a few, the leaders agreed to work towards swift negotiations for additional liberalization of the Korea-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, which could help reach their target trade volume of $200 billion by 2020. Now, on the security front, Korea and the ASEAN countries agreed to build on their first ever security dialogue, which took place here in Busan in June this year. The Southeast Asian leaders also voiced their support for President Park's trust-building process with North Korea, as well as her Northeast Asia Peace Initiative. The two sides also agreed to bolster their consular cooperation for tourists, businessmen, government officials, students, and workers as a means to boost people-to-people exchanges. Hyung-kyung?
All right, thank you, Sung. It seems like a lot went on at the Korea-ASEAN Summit, so Sung-hee will actually keep us updated on that. On staying with that topic, on day one of the event, President Park Geun-hye held back-to-back summit talks with the visiting leaders from ASEAN, of course. For details on what was discussed during those meetings, here's our Choi Yoo-sun.
After concluding an FTA with Vietnam, the Korean president secured a positive response from her Indonesian counterpart Thursday when she suggested they resume their FTA negotiations. Such bilateral deals are expected to increase the number of Korean firms that can benefit from free trade with ASEAN. As for investments in the region, the Thai Prime Minister promised to allow a Korean company retain priority when Bangkok selects a bidder for part of its $10 billion river management project. President Park first raised the issue to the Thai leader last month after the new government in Bangkok said it would reconsider giving Korea priority. Winning infrastructure construction bids has become a major deal for Korean firms, with the ASEAN closely trailing the Middle East in terms of market size. On regional security, ASEAN leaders were united in voicing concerns about the threat of Pyongyang's nuclear weapons development to world peace and endorsed President Park's efforts to denuclearize the peninsula by way of inter-Korean trust building and non-political cooperation. South Korea, as an aid recipient turned donor nation, pledged to expand development assistance to Laos and customize Korea's Saemaul-undong, or modernization of rural communities, to meet the needs of the Southeast Asian country. In addition, Seoul vowed to soon assist the Philippines with recovery efforts in the aftermath of a typhoon in the country, which claimed dozens of lives. Following a marathon of talks, President Park hosted her ASEAN counterparts and first ladies at a banquet that fused tradition and modernity, representing both Korea and ASEAN. Having reaffirmed their will to boost their cooperative ties, the 11 leaders will meet on Friday to discuss a range of regional and global issues. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News, Busan.
Choi-yeon, now the former vice president of Korean Air, is facing questions from Korean aviation authorities as we speak over her so-called nut rage. This comes after her father, also the CEO of Korean Air, held a press conference earlier in the day and apologized for everything. Here's Kim Min-ji for this report.
Korean Air's now former Vice President Choi Hyun-ah appeared before aviation safety inspectors for questioning Friday afternoon. Speaking to reporters, she apologized for her actions and said she would cooperate with the investigation. Jo initially refused to show, but changed her mind after prosecutors raided the headquarters of the nation's flagship carrier over concerns of evidence tampering. Her appearance comes after her father, the CEO of Korean Air, Cho Yang-ho, apologized on her behalf at a press conference and vowed that such an incident would not happen again.
대한항공의 회장으로서 또한 조연아의 애기로서 국민 여러분의 너그러운 용서를 다시 한번 바랍니다.
Jo was thrust into the international spotlight about a week ago after making a Korean Air flight from New York to Seoul turn back to the gate after a flight attendant served her nuts in the package instead of on a plate, apparently not following protocol. The government is currently investigating whether her actions broke air traffic safety laws or other regulations. She has also been barred from leaving the country. Jo first stepped down from her duties related to flight services over the backlash, but later offered her full resignation. She will also quit all of her positions at affiliates of Korean Air, but is expected to maintain the shares she currently holds. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Cho Yang-ho now is also the chairman of the organizing committee of the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. In a statement released today, he declined the International Olympic Committee's suggestion to consider holding some events in other countries, adding that the proposal was not prudent. Cho said he appreciated the IOC's cost concerns, but that construction had already begun on all the venues. In that same press conference that we mentioned earlier, Cho said he would stay on as the chief organizer of the Pyeongchang Games despite the controversy surrounding her daughter, Cho Hyuna. On the economic front, private institutions in Seoul forecast that the Korean economy will expand by 3.7% next year. This is the median for 17 private research institutes. They also believe that growth will be slower in the first half of 2015. The forecast from foreign investment banks is lower at 3.6% for next year, citing the weak Japanese yen's effect on Korean exports and weak consumer sentiment. Now, all of those are lower than the 4% goal set by the Korean government and the 3.9% set by the Bank of Korea. The smartphone market has been saturated for quite some time now, but the aftermarket for smartphones is still a booming industry. That's the case, at least for Korea. Arirang's Shin Se-min reports.
Virtually everyone has one. These little smartphones that allow us to be connected and to connect. With up to 1.4 billion smartphones having been sold worldwide, it has created another ecosystem that is expanding quite rapidly. From portable rechargers charging the device practically anywhere, to Bluetooth headsets for hands-free phone calls, and smartphone gloves that allow users to use the screen without having to take them off. These are just a handful of the products driving the smartphone accessory aftermarket.
I use a sturdy and fashionable case to help protect my phone, but I'm here to check out some other products, including the Bluetooth-related devices.
With just a few taps, this Bluetooth speaker is hooked up and you're ready to go. According to US-based ABI research, the global smartphone accessory aftermarket will be worth more than an estimated $50 billion by the end of the year. The market for these accessories is increasing, despite smartphone shipments dipping as the market reaches maturity. Growth in the smartphone market is forecast to edge down over the next few years to just 6% in 2018. An industry watcher says that while smartphone sales are going one way, the accessories market is going the other.
It's not rocket science. Technology is being applied to things we already use. It's not really technical, so they can be created by individuals, and this diversifies the market.
While the analyst thinks camera-related products and accessories have the biggest room for growth, he says it's just a matter of how big the market will become. Even the industry's biggest players like Samsung and LG Electronics are hoping these kinds of innovations will boost their profits even as the smartphone market slows. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Twitter Korea reported its top tweets for 2014 and says the nation's biggest story was April's ferry disaster. The Sewol-ho ferry tragedy was the event most tweeted about this year, with many tweets in the form of thoughts and prayers for the victims and their families. Next on the list was Korean figure skater Kim Yeon-a's final performance in February at the Winter Olympics in Sochi. Following were local elections in June and Pope Francis's trip to Korea in August. Globally, though, the most tweeted event of the year was a World Cup semi-final match in July between Germany and Brazil. Now, the safety concerns at a new landmark in southern Seoul are piling up. One theater at Lotte World Tower has been temporarily closed after moviegoers complained of the floor shaking and odd noises. Lotte Cinema said safety inspections would be conducted to determine the cause, but concerns are mounting because it's not the first time such safety issues were reported. Last month, firemen were called in after a visitor reported similar issues, and just a couple of days ago, local media reported that parts of the aquarium of the multi-purpose complex were shut down due to safety issues. The Lotte World Tower scraper is still under construction, with only the lower part of the mall opened for public.
Bringing you the fresh updates from stories breaking in Korea and abroad. We give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Join Na Hyung-kyung live from Seoul. Every weekday, only on Arirang.
South Korea's Unification Minister Ryu Gil-jae is on a trip to Washington, and he stresses to reporters that Seoul's plan is to peacefully reunite the two Koreas and not to absorb Pyongyang. For more, here's our Park Ji-won.
Speaking to reporters in Washington Thursday, South Korea's Unification Minister Ryu Gil-jae said strained inter-Korean relations in the long term are not beneficial to either side, and the time to change things for the better is now.
Next year will mark the 70th anniversary of the nation's liberation from Japan, and it's time to make a breakthrough in inter-Korean relations.
The minister said President Park Geun-hye's envisioned unification drive is based on the North and South working and growing together. He stressed that South Korea's push to unify the two Koreas is not an attempt to absorb the North. Earlier this year, the South Korean president said unification would be a bonanza for the two Koreas. But North Korea denounced President Park's drive, saying she wants to absorb the North into the South.
I once again want to reiterate that our government's envisioned drive is a peaceful unification, not an absorption plan.
However, Minister Ryu said South Korea cannot turn a blind eye to North Korea's nuclear ambitions and human rights issues. So efforts to solve those issues will go hand in hand with Seoul's drive to improve inter-Korean relations. During his stop in the U.S. capital, the South Korean minister met with various U.S. officials, including Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee Ed Royce, where he explained South Korea's unification policies and asked for their support. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, it's not every day that you see the director of the CIA hold a press conference, but the mounting criticism against the agency regarding its past interrogation techniques has moved the chief. He recognized some tactics were beyond authorization, but generally defended what he calls not torture, but enhanced interrogation techniques. Connie Lee has more.
The director of the CIA defended his agency in a rare TV press conference on Thursday.
The detention and interrogation program produced useful intelligence that helped the United States thwart attack plans, capture terrorists, and save lives.
According to John Brennan, that includes useful information that led to the death of Osama bin Laden. However, on the question of whether some of that information was obtained without the use of brutal torture sessions or enhanced interrogation techniques, otherwise known as EITs, Brennan said that was unknowable.
Let me be clear. We have not concluded that it was the use of EITs within that program that allowed us to obtain useful information from detainees subjected to them.
The director's statements come just 2 days after the U.S. Senate released a report that said the CIA acted more brutally in its torture techniques of detainees after the 9/11 attacks than it previously acknowledged. Some of the brutal methods described in the report were waterboarding, severe beatings, and a method that led to one detainee to freeze to death. Although the CIA chief said the majority of his agents followed legal advice, he did admit that some actions were not authorized.
In a limited number of cases, agency officers used interrogation techniques that had not been authorized, were abhorrent, and rightly should be repudiated by all.
One U.S. lawmaker has called for Brennan to quit, while the United Nations and human rights groups are asking for the prosecution of U.S. officials involved in the CIA program from 2001 to 2007. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Traffic is flowing again where tents once stood. Hong Kong police made good on their promise Thursday to clear out the main protest site in Admiralty, marking an end to at least this chapter of the pro-democracy sit-ins. Some 7,000 officers were deployed to remove barricades and sweep up tents and other debris left behind. They were met with resistance, though. About 200 people were arrested for obstruction and unlawful assembly. Among the detained were student leader Nathan Law and media tycoon Jimmy Lai. Demonstrators vowed to continue their protest through other forms of civil disobedience, recognizing that it would be a long road to win their demands for free elections in the territory's leadership polls in 2017. Switzerland is halting an Ebola vaccine trial after a number of participants complained of side effects. The University of Geneva Hospital says 4 of their 59 test volunteers had mild joint pain in their hands and feet. Swiss researchers will stop administering the vaccine next week to find out what may have caused the issues. They also said they will work with others who are testing the vaccine in the U.S., Canada, and Germany. For the latest on the Ebola outbreak, the virus has killed more than 6,000 people in West Africa since early this year. Now, the United States has developed a new laser gun that could change the way battles are fought and won. The system is currently being tested on a U.S. Navy ship, and the plans call for full deployment by the year 2020. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Target, locked and loaded. The U.S. Navy's newly developed laser weapon demolishes an enemy target at sea in a training exercise. This time, it locks onto an enemy drone and fires a 30-kilowatt laser. In just 2 seconds, the UAV is taken down. The laser weapon was recently deployed on the USS Ponce in the Persian Gulf for a 4-month test run, and the results, officials say, were phenomenal. It's lifting hopes of a new type of defense against cheap anti-ship arms. The Office of Naval Research says the $40 million laser weapon is the first directed energy weapons system in history. Rear Admiral Matthew Clunder says it is fully operational on the USS Ponce and is used daily in training drills. The deployment of the weapon comes as the Pentagon is worried about losing its technological edge that enabled the U.S. to stay one step ahead of its rivals on the battlefield for decades. Many countries such as China and Iran have developed long-range missiles and accurate anti-ship missiles in recent years. The Navy plans to enhance the power of the laser system to 150 kilowatts, which would theoretically give them the capability to destroy a multi-million-dollar missile for about $1. That more powerful laser is currently in development and is expected to be deployed by 2017. If proven effective, it could be widely produced and integrated on numerous ships. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Scientists are still poring over all the data sent back from a landmark spacecraft, Rosetta, which landed on a speeding comet in space about a month ago. They've already come to one preliminary conclusion, that the water here on Earth probably didn't come from ancient comets. Kwon So-ah explains the initial findings.
Where did the water on our planet Earth come from? That is one of the questions the Rosetta mission is trying to answer. After the European spacecraft's probe made a historic touchdown on Comet 67P last month, now it's bringing us its first discoveries. One of it is the detection of water on the comet. That's no surprise. But a closer look at the results show that the water is very different from that on Earth. That's what's making scientists scratch their heads. Because so far they thought that comets that smashed into the Earth billions of years ago brought a bunch of water to the planet. But Rosetta's chemical analysis shows Comet 67P's water has 3 times more deuterium, a form of hydrogen, than that of water on Earth. That, according to scientists, rules out that comets are the source of Earth's water. They say this makes it more likely that water came from asteroid collisions around 3.8 billion years ago, as asteroids' hydrogen is more similar in terms of their composition. But some say it's too early to eliminate the chances that comets dump the water into the Earth, saying the deuterium to hydrogen ratio varies by comet.
What we can conclude from these results is that water can develop from various different sources, either close to or far away from the sun.
The principal investigator of Rosina, an instrument of the spacecraft, says the comet's high amount of deuterium means the water was formed at very low temperatures, meaning although it doesn't look like it's the water we have on Earth, it's a real treasure chest to explore very early times of our solar system. 권소아, 아리랑 뉴스.
Temperatures dropped quite a lot today compared to yesterday. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. We started off with the day at -7 degrees, which was roughly 6 degrees lower compared to yesterday. Snow is also in the forecast today. As you can see outside right now, it's snowing heavily across the nation, and this will stop throughout the day and into the evening as well. Now, also there is a cold wave advisory in effect in Gangwon-do, Gyeonggi-do provinces. Meanwhile, the southern regions have temperatures up above the freezing point. However, there's strong wind blowing, and the temperatures will be cooler and colder with the wind chill. So for those of you in the area, make sure to layer up when you're heading outside. Now, it's been snowing heavy in the west provinces, now expecting more up to 10 centimeters, while other regions, including Seoul, will get between 1 to 3 centimeters. Now, the snow is expected to last until the evening for most regions. However, the west coast regions are expecting until Saturday. And now to our readings for today. Seoul will peak to 1 degree this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will peak up a bit higher at 3 and 7 degrees. And to other regions such as Jeju Island peaks up to 8, Dokdo hits lower at 3, while Nangkeugang tops just at -9. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and now here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
That's a wrap for now from me and the rest of the team here in Seoul. Thank you very much for staying with us. We will be back with more updates at 6 p.m. Korea time. Bye-bye for now.